News Talk 640 WFNC. Kirk deVIERE in the hot seat right now. The place, you were in the hot seat last night. How are you today, sir?
I'm great.
You had a long county commissioners meeting last night. Went to what time?
Well, that's it. It was pretty late last night, around 11 o'clock, I think. So we had a public hearing. I mean, what drove it is we had a public hearing around the moratorium to let people speak on the proposed moratorium on the data centers. And
Give us a synopsis. What was the general feel of folks?
well, first of all, we had about 28 speakers. Normally on public hearings like that, there's a time limit. I get some latitude as the chair, and I appreciate the board giving me that latitude last night and allowed, thought it was important that every voice was heard. So we listened to every speaker that came up and gave them, up to 3 minutes each to speak. And there was a blend of sentiment. There was a genuine concern for what some believe the impact is of data centers, and there were some that were for it, some that were against the moratorium. But overall, just a really good dialogue. The speakers, for minus one incident, were relatively respectful of each other, and the crowd was respectful of receiving the information from different speakers. But a lot of good points brought up, on all sides, and just a lot of good information. And it's important to hear from the community. This is just another step in that process. So we wanted to hear on just specifically the moratorium portion.
Right, and that's the point I want to make, that we're not talking about the decision on whether we're going to have one come here or anything like that. It was just on the moratorium itself.
That's right.
On should we have a delay? What is the proposed time limit that you're talking about?
We did not. So one of the things in our moratorium, that's what we wanted to listen last night. We wanted to, receive information. We 28 speakers, but we probably had another 50 to 75 letters that came in, either emails or letters. Those were all provided to us by the clerk. So a good opportunity to kind of digest all the information, talk more with our staff and attorney on what other things we need to shape in that moratorium. But the times that we heard last night from the speakers were everything from a year to 3 years to no moratoriums. So quite a range last night. I mean, I think the general comment that you had, or the consensus comment around a time frame you probably heard from the speakers, was a year. That's what people, and the signs that people were holding up as well.
Right, and the city, on the other hand, has not done a moratorium. It's just a delay.
They've done a pause, but
pause.
The difference in this scenario is that if you have a corporation that puts a permit in or an entity that puts a permit in to start this process, a pause doesn't stop that process. A moratorium stops that process. And one thing that Commissioner Faircloth asked of the staff last night is just to, and I think it was a very good question, has our departments, have our staff received any, initial permits or initial request around these lines? And a statement from our staff was we had not. And so that's part of, if we look to put a moratorium in, that gives us that protection while we begin to shape the ordinance as well. And it also manages the expectations for any industry or corporation or development group that's looking to come in here. They know what the expectations are.
Okay, so 11:30 last night, you talked about a number of different things besides the data center store.
Well, that was the bulk of it.
Was it really? Yeah.
It was. I mean, that you figured 28 speakers, 3 minutes each, dialogue afterwards. So there was that conversation. We also had a few zoning cases. One had a longer discussion period around it. So that was timely, but this is all doing the work. And then we also had a great presentation on our Gillespie Street lot. So Robert Van Giens, last year we talked to him about looking to update a hospitality feasibility study for a downtown location. And so he brought that back last night to us and showed us an opportunity for hotel and mixed-use development on the Gillespie Street lot that would include hotel, convention space, meeting space, as well as parking. Showed that there was market, the market could absorb it, so there was the feasibility to have it here, the size that it could look like. our consultant came back with the feasibility study and gave us some details publicly. And of course, there's some things we had to talk about under economic development closed session, because there's some things as we, move forward or look to move forward with this, we need to understand, what does that public-private partnership looks like? Is there a need for public involvement in this? What would that look like? And begin to shape those next steps so that we can look to engage, put together the package and engage our developers. But it was an exciting 125 key hotel, so 125 rooms. Just a good consultant came in and really talked about the market, what we thought we could absorb, what could go there. So, if you think some more of these more boutique kind of smaller 125 room hotels, full service restaurant, kind of geared towards the meeting space, convention space, more amenity driven. So we were excited to see that our market, and we knew our market could absorb it. If you recall probably within the last 3 to 4 years, there was discussion around a project like that in our downtown. The problem is there wasn't really a location that would work, that fit the financials, that fit the amenities around it that needed to be there, including the parking and including the convention space and those types of things. And, it's one thing when we, adjusted what was happening on that Gillespie Street lot. We said, here's an opportunity for a product. And, Robert Van Giens was very insightful about it. He said, we had a project here we were trying to make work. Here's an opportunity. Let's explore it. And so that's what we did with this feasibility study. We see the market is still, we're still in a position where we can handle this type of hospitality project. And we look forward to taking the next steps, look forward to having a conversation with the city. We asked our county manager last night. Some of the things is confidential, proprietary, but we gave direction to our county manager last night to engage the city manager and have a conversation with him, share some of the information, and see if it makes sense for them to participate in this opportunity as they're going down that road and looking at convention space in downtown.
When you have Robert Van Giens come in, he's just a great guy in terms of the economic development here in our community, both for the city and the county. Have they identified a potential brand that might want to hang their hat on this?
So what our consultant did, what part of the feasibility study was to engage the brands. What you don't want to do is we don't want to get locked in, because we're going to first get the development group, and the development group is going to work with the brands. But what they did is engage several of the, so they engaged the Marriott, they engaged Hilton, Hyatt's, and to make sure that this was a viable product, that they saw the ability to be successful in this market, in what level of product they would put there. And so that was part of this process as well, because we want to have that so when we begin to reach out to development groups and have those conversations, that there's already a baseline for the types of hotels, the type of the hotels or the brands that would be there. So you kind of called it a hard brand versus a soft brand, where you're leading with, like they showed last night, the name of it hypothetically would be like the Cumberland, a Marriott property, or Cumberland, the Cumberland, a Hilton property. Just a softer brand, much like you see, happening in Asheville with some of the different Asheville and Columbia, South Carolina, and others, where you're kind of having that, hotel / convention center, more full service geared amenity type hotel.
All right, KIRK deVIERE is with us. He is the chairman of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. Had a long meeting last night.
Doing the people's business.
Yeah, well, that's what you do, and that's why you're here talking about the people's business right now. We're going to take a little break, hold you over here for a second, and continue with our conversation. You're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC. Right now, we've got Fayetteville's most dependable forecast with CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunsing.
Today will be mostly sunny and hot with a high of 95, flirting with a high temperature record of 96 set back in 2022. Tonight will be mostly clear with a low of 66, and Wednesday will start out with some patchy fog, then turn partly cloudy with a high of 95. We're going to stay hot and rain-free until Thursday, when a cold front brings rain and a few storms late in the day, and then some spring rain will continue off and on through the weekend. That is your Fayetteville forecast. I'm CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunsing.
Okay, Rachel, right now 70 degrees in Fayetteville, Hope Mills, and also at Fort Bragg. You're listening to News Talk 640. We're WFNC.
Sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster. Buying custom blinds shouldn't
Way to
be
make it happen.
complicated or stressful. That's why we make
That's
it
what-
simple and affordable.
That's what I needed right there.
Install,
Oh, thank
you
you.
save
That's
big
perfect.
on custom blinds.
And I don't want to beat the dead horse. I think I gave this to you earlier last week. This is information of the data centers,
Fayetteville's
and this is
first radio
speculative of where it
station,
could
still
be
first
done,
in
and also
serving
received.
our
Like, you
community.
probably know that.
Yes.
News Talk
Thank you, sir.
640 WFNZ in high def on 103.5 HD2.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt?
Oh, this is the Tunnel to Towers.
That can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows
Yeah.
these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax
Yeah.
resolution firm, and rated by the Better Business Bureau.
Okay.
Their award-winning tax attorneys and licensed
Thank you.
professionals have resolved over $3 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions.
Well, don't
Find
get-
the best
don't get the
options to
management
solve
mad
your
at you.
tax problems. Call the experts at Optima Tax
And we're getting ready to go
Relief
Fox.
today
You know,
for a free
CBS is
consultation. Call 800
losing their.
896
Huh?
You're going to Fox News on here?
800
Yeah,
896
because CBS is
8155,
dropping their
800
radio division.
8155.
I mean,
Optima Tax Relief.
that's big. That's
huge.
I mean, that says I'm in a dead business right now.
Marketing text
You
messages
know,
consist
you
of
got any
no
openings over there?
purchase
Gee,
rates may apply. The team's
yeah,
looking good
is it
this
on there?
season. I
No,
think
I'm saying
so.
it's all
Man,
on
I
Oh,
miss playing
absolutely.
football.
Sure.
Ever since I turned 40, I just can't
I
find
mean,
that
it's-
fire I used to have. Think it could be lower
that's-
testosterone? What do you mean? I was feeling the
This is
same
my
way.
Ranger
After
stuff,
40,
man. You hear how
my body
loud that
needs
is?
testosterone, and men use the reg. That's why I take
That's because
Total T2.
I lost part of my hearing in Ranger School.
Total T2 is their brand new formula.
They dropped the
Skyrockets
artillery
nitric oxide
simulator right
levels in
near
as
me.
little as 3 hours. Since I
You know,
started
this
taking
year's
it,
not
I feel
going.
like when we played for Coach Carter, my energy is
broke a
way
leg
up,
and
they
ripped a
even
knee
spiced up
in
things
my
between
first
me and
round.
misses. Are they
Yeah,
still giving
well,
out
I mean,
complimentary
that's how
bottles?
come I
Just send the
couldn't go to
text.
jump
Text
school.
him to
The injuries that I suffered with that, they wouldn't let me go. I mean, I was scheduled to go that August. And,
That's going backwards. Normally you go airborne school then Ranger school.
yeah, well, that's okay.
But other people do it other ways.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of straight leg rangers.
Oh, yeah.
We're the most deadliest. Because while you guys float in all soft and everything, I got to go through the swamps. And when I'm pissed off. I'm ready to kill somebody. I've been walking all damn night. You come in floating down all nice and soft. That's my story. Airborne guys don't like it when I tell them that. That's all right. News Talk 640 WFNC. Did I turn my mic down or did you? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You know what it is? I was talking to Kirk deVIERE and I said, Kirk, I can't hear because of injury from Ranger School. And we were laughing about that. And I turned my headphones down. And that's why I didn't.
I'm okay half the time.
No, that was me. I cleared because I said, Kirk, he said, yeah, you're about
That's
to
a
go
good partner in
crazy.
there. He always takes the fall for you. I like that.
That's right. That's what
He's
you
got your
need.
back.
That's right. All right. Well, we were sharing our Ranger stories. You hurt yourself, didn't you? Going,
I did.
but you went through.
I ripped broke a leg and ripped a knee. So my first round.
At what point were you not hand-to-hand combat? Were you?
No, it was on a jump.
On the jump. Okay. Yeah, man, I tell you what. When me and my Ranger buddy said, look, we're going to do hand-to-hand combat here for Benny. I saw guys beat their guy up to they broke somebody's arm. He's got to get recycled. I said, look, we're going to do it. We're going to knock it. We're going to make it hard. We're going to learn the thing here, but we're going to make it to the next
WWE
phase.
style.
There you go, buddy. So we did our thing. But anyway, look, that is not why we're here. We know Kirk is, if you're just joining us right now, Kirk is the chairman of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. How long have you been in that spot now? It seems like forever.
No, December 24. So I was elected November 24, took office in December 24, and became the chair the night that we swore in with a new board, and then was reelected the chair by my peers last December. So coming up on 18 months.
Well, a lot of stuff has happened since we've had the new Board of Commissioners here. And the event center downtown has changed. We're talking about a possible hotel deal to replace what was there.
Hotel Convention Center, yeah. Parking deck.
It's temporary parking deck right now. That some reporters said, hey, we're going to make it a whole parking deck. That's not true. But we were talking about the data center, and Kenny, our Hitman consultant,
Hitman.
Kenny Hitman gave us some ideas of where you might be able to put that thing. There's a little site on Dunn Road, Cluster Avenue site. There's a couple of things that you do. Yeah, no, the closest one now is the Goodyear plant up on Ramsey Street. That would make a one. Look, and Kirk, you're just smiling when I said that, but I think something is in the works here, because the infrastructure is there, the land obviously is there, and this is the first time that Goodyear. Over the years that they've threatened to shut down and everything, that they've actually put a date on it. And what's your take on what's happening at Goodyear?
Yeah, and first of all, our primary concern is, how do we help the families transition, over 2,000 families. So we want to make sure that, we're working hard in the community from our workforce development side, both talking to our council of government, our local workforce, NC Works, as well as Robert's team, working with FTCC and local colleges and universities to make sure that we've got opportunities for them, talking to our Department of Commerce at the state level. I know I personally talked to Secretary of Commerce and how we can begin to look at what we can do on that site. So, making sure that we can transition to other industry. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us right now. As we look in our advanced manufacturing space, some of the collaborative things that you're seeing in that industry. We still have a titanium plant coming near that area. So how can we look to find things that would work in parallel with that? And we're already seeing some interest over the economic development on top of everything else that he's doing. He and his staff, they're aggressively looking at what our options are for that. But again, we're very focused on the families that we will see transition from there. We're looking for a lot of opportunities around that to ensure they have a good landing.
Well, a little heads up here. We had an issue with the audio once again because we were rushing to put this on. So folks who are listening on our Facebook page, we're not really hearing. You probably hear us okay, but back and forth with Kenny, you wouldn't hear him at all. So I'll need the audio so I can to do a dub afterward post. So what about we've talked about the families. There is a big concern here. This is not the first time that there was a threat that the Goodyear plant was going to close.
This time's a little bit different. Some of us thought the same thing. If you've been in economic development or around the business community here for many years, you've kind of seen this evidence. Well, we different transitions at the Goodyear plant, renewals of renegotiations of contracts, changing tire lines and things like that to continue to, I'm sure, Goodyear to keep the plant profitable and with good market share. And I think this time is different. I mean, we're not talking about incentives to keep them here. They begin negotiations with the union, which is a signal. And so, we've continued to have conversations with them. Robert Van Geens is having conversations with the plant manager and others at higher levels. And so is our commerce level at the state, as well as having those conversations. So it's different this time, and that's why we just got we got a 2-year run at this. So we just need to lean into this and do what we do as a can-do community, and that's be resilient. And I think that's what we'll do.
Well, I mean, the other thing that is different now is the amount of the advancement in technology and making anything with robotics and things like that.
Yeah, but we you saw some of that automation, come into that plant several years ago. I just think, when you look at, a lot of things, you can just look at, how they're doing globally and how they're doing nationally and some of the reports that have come out. I mean, you look at the economic pressures that you're seeing, whether it's tariffs or petroleum fuel, pricing and those types of things. I think, people are making, corporations have to make those types of business decisions. What we need to do is, and I think we are, be prepared as a community to be resilient and look for how we turn this into the right opportunity for our community.
Well, I mean,
it was a great opportunity when it came several years ago, and this is a critical point for us to pivot and look at that next opportunity for us and for the type of workforce we want to have here in our community.
Well, I mean, Kelly's been there for 55 years, at that location. And so even something like tariffs or whatever, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so businesses have had to deal with price fluctuations and profit margins and all that stuff for quite some time, and they've been able to survive. Not to the extent that you would have to shutter a plant. You've got a lot of great workers here in this area because of Fort Bragg and the folks who come in this area and call it home. And unfortunately for us, the Goodyear is one of the good paying jobs in blue collar, good paying jobs in our community with good benefits and pensions. Of course, hopefully that all that would stay, even if the plant shuts down.
That's
Those are
right.
getting patient,
Yeah, that's
all
right.
that stuff was taking place. But you got to really wonder why now, um, as opposed to any other time, even with the tariffs and the price of oil and all that stuff.
Well,
That will change.
I'm a big believer in you control what you can control, and we can wonder why they're doing, why a corporation's making decisions, or we can lean into this and make it an opportunity for this community and for the people that live here or the people that we want to live here. And I think that's what we're looking to do. I mean, we rapidly came together as, a leadership team across the community with some of the key stakeholders and began to look at what we needed to do. What are we asking our congressional delegation, how they can help us? How are we looking at our state delegation and how they can help us? What about our, Department of Commerce, Department of Labor at the national levels? What are the types of things that we need to do to transition our workforce, get them prepared, and then work aggressively to find opportunities for that facility? I mean, you've got rail, you've got all the infrastructure at that facility. So we've got to look at it as an opportunity. That's
Well,
the
I
only
mean,
way we can.
there's got to be some businesses licking their chops at the potential of what could happen there if they do,
That's
in
right.
fact. And every report should or may close down. They have not said definitely, but it looks like because they put a date, this may happen. All right. On another subject, I was on my way to Charlotte with Gilbert Jr. and we were on Highway 401,
hmm
and we got to Rayford, and Lord and behold, there's the aquatic center out there. And who came to mind? KIRK deVIERE. Have you been to that facility
I
out
have.
there?
I have.
I mean,
It's a great facility.
it was jam-packed with
Hope
cars.
County did an incredible job on putting that together. A great community type asset. We're again looking at something that looks a little bit different than that. And again, that's what this feasibility study is for. So we'll start that process with our consultant on the feasibility study. The feasibility study's got to tell us a few things. One, will it even work in this market? What type of programming do you need? Will it work in this market? Where are you going to put it? What's the cost? And what are some options that you can stack a financial model to make this work? Do we need collegiate high school competitions? Are we going to use tourism as a driver? Is it going to have community assets? These are all the things. This is why you go through a feasibility study. May came back and say, you don't need this asset right now. Or it may come back and say, you just really need community level pools. You're not going to get the collegiate kind of tourism drive that that you've talked about or that has been seen. So that's the purpose of this study.
Well, I'm not a county commissioner, but I have played one on TV.
You can be one.
That's my
You can
line.
run and be one.
Yeah, sure I can. But here's the thing. I might as well throw my 2 cents out on where it should be.
Please.
Let's put it out there where we used to have the water park. Remember the water park on Highway 24?
Mhm.
It was around for a couple of years. It was a pretty big deal. The neat thing about it is, right off of I-95, right off 24, you got the land out there to do something like that. Is there any? But there could be other places within the county
That's part
to
of
do that.
part of the feasibility study. So it's going to begin to take a look at those areas. Do we look at when we brought some of the stakeholders initially in the community around the table to kind of have those conversations to build some information to provide to the consultants as they start this. Where do they see it? What types of programs do the stakeholders see that we need in our community? Kind of some of that community input so the consultant would have it. There were probably 2 or 3 locations that kind of all circled around the 95. A lot of conversation around the Crown and creating that sports and entertainment kind of complex or hub that we've talked about. You get it, centrally located somewhere off a 95, 295 kind of stretch. But I think that's part of what we're doing the right things with a feasibility study. You plan, you plan correctly, and then you can make solid decisions off of data, not off of what people, what their hunches are.
When you came in office, for the first time in a long time, there's a lot of collaboration between the county and the city. Something I haven't seen in the years that I've been here. Is everybody's like, this is my turf, this is my area, but you and Mitch Colvin, who's the mayor of Fayetteville, have had a lot of dialogue. But recently there was a little, hey, we want to put a convention center down here. It's something that the cities wanted to do. The one that they had was shuttered, or the event that we're talking about at the court from the courthouse is not going to happen. Your take on the city having a desire to do that?
I don't see it. I think yeah, I see it as, Mayor Colvin and the city council has a passion for growing their downtown and having a vibrant downtown. I think what we saw, and we talked about it. I don't think there's any us versus them. I mean, what we saw is, a few years ago, there was an opportunity to try to bring a hotel and convention center in downtown. We couldn't find the placement for it. With the Crown Center, the Crown Event Center project going away, and us moving back to revitalization of the arena and the theater out at the Crown complex, it provided a space that then we could say, hey, this makes sense because for what we looked at, for the type of product we looked at. Let's go back and check that. That's where we engaged Robert and said, hey, let's take a look at this. So it can work for the county, the city. It can work for this community. The thing is that it's bringing a hospitality product to the downtown, which has been a need, been a want. People have advocated for it. Now we've got the size area that we need in a great location that works. So I don't see it as a us versus them. I see it as a way for us to continue to work together. Let them, the city and the county be part of the public arm of this public-private partnership potentially. That as we move through this, it may just be a totally private deal, but more than likely it'll be a public-private type partnership that we'll look at, and this, City of Fayetteville can be part of that. We directed the managers last night to our manager to have a conversation with their managers. I don't see it as us versus them. We see it as how can we maximize this, key piece of property that's right there where we struggled before to try to bring a hotel and convention or meeting space to the downtown because we didn't have a location. So now we have a location. So, and we own the dirt, we own the lot. So why wouldn't we begin to move that project forward, move that opportunity forward?
All right, Kirk deVIERE is the chairman of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. Got about another minute here. So one thing I've mentioned to you about all these things is, we can do a lot of planning. We can't look back because there are those who said that the jail should have been out where the Crown is and the Crown should have been here.
You can only control what you can control.
That's right. And but who has the crystal ball? And who has the crystal ball on the data center? Who's going to know what that's going to impact 40 years from now? So the decisions right now,
that's right.
You have to have a little bit of that, but you really don't have it.
But it's also, you also have to plan. And so while a crystal ball is important, you have to plan. And 10 years ago, we should have been planning for our infrastructure here. We should have been investing in our school systems and in our school facilities. When we're getting ready to go to a joint meeting with the school board here at 9:30 today to talk about their next year's budget. But that infrastructure that we didn't put in 10 or 15 years ago, the water and the sewer out in these municipal areas and out across our county, now is limiting our ability for industry and limiting our ability for rooftops. And we've got to plan to fix that now. So while it may not be a crystal ball, it's about how you plan and prepare and how you do it in a very, focused, deliberate, thoughtful process.
Well, unfortunately, some of that stuff is political suicide. Ask Marshall Faircloth, who led the charge for the annexation, and all those folks that got annexed voted him out.
Not Marshall Faircloth, Marshall Pitts.
Marshall Pitts. That's right. Marshall was on the board.
But that's political courage. That's doing the right thing.
And that's what everybody says.
But you do the right thing. I mean, I could give you an example of my own political career.
Sure. Well, I know yours.
But that's doing the right thing. That's planning the way that you need to plan and have forward thinking. Vision. And my hat's off to Mayor Pitts for what he did at that time.
Right, and it benefited the city. We had the city surrounded by a city that brought it in, and it changed how much financing we got. Because
but what we do need to do now is get the infrastructure out to those people in Western Fayetteville.
That's right. They've been working on that for some time, too. All right, Kirk deVIERE, we always can talk for an hour. I'm glad you came a little bit early,
Always.
so we're able to get you in here. And I got you on speed dial. If all of a sudden somebody cancels, I'll say, get on over here.
Text me anytime.
Stop by the donut shop and bring something for Kenny.
Please.
Kenny's eating healthy now. I'm not going to try to.
Yeah, he is. He's doing fine.
No, bring the good ones, okay?
All right, you're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC.
This update is sponsored by Precip, the best weather app for checking precise rainfall totals.